In Monster Hunter World, there are many aspects to consider when taking on a hunt. The target, your weapon, these are all important, but hunters who want optimal performance need to consider the build they use via the armor and gear they wear. I'm Darcblade, and here are even more builds that I use for the hammer. The skills that you can gain from armor and even some weapons can help shape your hunter into specialized hunting machines. With the hammer, is once again a weapon that excels at DPS, however it does have crowd controlling capabilities thanks to the fact that the hammer can easily KO or exhaust a monster. Nonetheless, the majority of the builds I use capitalise on the DPS aspects of the hammer combined with survivability and crowd control. So the first build I use is the ELEMENTLESS build version 2.0. This is an alternative ELEMENTLESS build utilising the Diablos Shatterer 2, which is one of the strongest hammers in the game. It is a DPS build with health regen. So for this build you'll need the Nergigante Helm Gamma, the Empress Mel Beta, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Nergigante Coil Gamma, and the Nergigante Greaves Gamma. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the Diablos Shatterer 2 with an Infinity Increase augmentation on it, as well as a health regen augmentation. As for your jaws, I've gone for standard DPS ones you would expect to find on a build like this, so an Elementless jaw to give us that non-elemental boost skill, Tenderizer jaws to give us that weakness exploit skill, Expert jaws to give us more critical eye, a Flawless jaw to max out peak performance, and Mighty jaw to provide some extra maximum might, a Handicraft jaw to get our sharpness up to white sharpness, and then a Sharp jaw to provide us with that protective polish skill. Now, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 1456 attack, which is actually higher when you're on a hunt thanks to peak performance, white sharpness, 35% affinity, which is actually 85 when you're on a hunt and you're going for monster weak points, and have maximum stamina with no element, and you'll have a strong defense, especially against fire, but you're fairly weak to thunder and dragon. As for the skills, you have critical eye level 6, critical eye boosts the affinity rating of the build, attack boost level 4, attack boost obviously increases the attack of the build, and at level 4 you also get 5% affinity. You have Handicraft level 4, as I said, Handicraft increases the sharpness gauge, and at level 4 it increases the weapon's sharpness to that white. Weakness exploit level 3, which increases our affinity when we attack monster weak points. Peak performance level 3, which increases our attack so long as our health is full. Agitator level 2, this is a byproduct of the gear but can still be useful, as Agitator, when it activates when a monster becomes enraged, it gives you bonus attack and affinity. You'll have maximum might level 2, increasing our affinity so long as our stamina is full. Stamina surge level 1, again a byproduct of the gear, but can be useful as the hammer does consume stamina for certain moves, and this will help replenish it quicker. You'll also have Protective Polish level 1. Protective Polish allows us to put a protective coating over our sharpness gauge, preventing any sharpness loss for a small duration. And with this build only having a sliver of white sharpness, this comes in very handy. And then finally you'll have non-elemental boost level 1, increasing the attack of our weapon so long as it doesn't have an element or the element or ailment is hidden, as is the case with the Diablos Shatterer 2. You'll also have the following set bonus: Nergigante's Hunger, Hasten Recovery. This allows us to recover health when we attack a monster. This does stack with the health regen augmentation as well found on the weapon, so it allows us decent health recovery so long as we're on the offensive. So as you can see, this is a pretty straightforward DPS build combined with health regen aspects. It is a shame that we can't get the build to 100% affinity, and if we could, we would probably make use of critical jaws to allow us that crit boost skill. But instead we've gone for flawless jaws, as we can't get that 100% affinity, allowing for some of the damage to be made up by peak performance. Also, because peak performance requires you to have your health bar full, the health regen aspects of this build can allow us to potentially keep peak performance active longer, saving us from having to manually sheathe our weapon and heal via potions and such. Now you can, of course, if you want, to switch out the Diablos Shatterer 2 for another Elementless weapon, and if you do so you might find that you actually get to that 100% affinity, but the choice is yours. I prefer the Diablos Shatterer as it has one of the highest attack values of all the hammers in the game. Anyway, let's move on to our second build, which is the KJARR or KJARR DPS build. This is a build that focuses on DPS and allows us to make use of any of the KJARR weapons. These are the weapons found from Arch-Tempered Korf that normally come with inbuilt critical status or critical element. For the demonstration of this build, I'll be showing off a Paralysis KJARR DPS build. So for this build you'll need the Kaiser Crown Gamma, the Empress Mel Beta, Kaiser Vambraces Gamma, Empress Coil Gamma, and the Kaiser Greaves Gamma. I'm also using a Handicraft Charm 3, and for my weapon I'm using the KJARR Hammer Numb. This has a health regen augmentation attached to it. As for your jaws, I've gone for Tenderizer jaws to provide us with that weakness exploit, a Flawless jaw to provide us maximum peak performance, Paralyzer jaws to max out the paralysis rating of our weapon, a handicraft jaw to provide us with a little bit of extra white sharpness, and then finally we'll have a few sockets left to do with as you wish. I've gone for a vitality jaw as well as a gobbler jaw. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, which is actually 200 health when you're on a hunt and taken all the appropriate consumables. 100 stamina, which will actually be 200 stamina once you're on a hunt and taken all of the various consumables. This is thanks to the Lunastra set bonus, which we'll talk about in a bit. You'll have an attack rating of 1014, which again will be higher when you're on a hunt thanks to peak performance. You have white sharpness, 50% affinity, which is actually 100% so long as you're going for monster weak points. 370 paralysis rating with a strong defense, especially against fire, but you're fairly weak to water and ice. As for the skills, you'll have critical eye level 7, handicraft level 4, health boost level 3, increasing our overall health to that potential maximum of 200, paralysis attack level 3, increasing the paralysis rating of our weapon as well as its build up, weakness exploit level 3, peak performance level 3, evade window level 2, increasing the invisibility frames when we're actually performing dodges. This is a byproduct of the gear but can still be useful, and speed eating level 1. This increases the rate at which we consume potions and such. Again, like I said, this one isn't vital to the build and can be easily changed out by replacing the gobbler jaw. You also have critical status level 1 thanks to the Shah Hammer Numb. This increases the ailment damage, so the paralysis damage, of our attacks when we crit a monster. You'll also have the following set bonuses: Teostra's Technique, Master's Touch, preventing any sharpness loss when we crit a monster, and as this build technically does have 100% affinity, so long as you're being careful with your aim and hitting monster weak points, you shouldn't lose any sharpness whatsoever. And you'll also have the Lunostra's favourite, Stamina Cap Up, increasing our maximum stamina to that potential 200. So as you can see, this is a straightforward DPS build utilising the Shah DPS weapons. It can use any of them really. All you have to do is swap out the Shah Hammer Numb to whatever one you want to use, whether it be an ailment one or elemental one. Also remember, if you do swap them out though, to change the paralyzer jaws to match whatever ailment or element you are using. Also take note as well that if you change to an elemental weapon, you won't have critical status skill anymore, you'll have the critical element skill, increasing the elemental portions of our attack when we crit a monster. It should also be noted as well that the peak performance skill won't affect anything to do with the element or ailment statuses of these builds. It just boosts the raw attack value of the build instead. But nonetheless, I personally love the Paralysis Hammer. The fact that you can paralyze monsters enables you to crowd control them in a way, allowing you and your teammates to dish out quite a bit of damage. This, combined with the fact that the hammer can actually knock out a monster or exhaust them, gives this build potentially 3 ways of crowd controlling a monster without having to rely on traps. If you put traps into the equation as well, then it's even more. But anyway, let's move on to our third build, which is the Blunt build version 2.0. This is a little bit of a novelty build that is a personal favourite of mine. I wouldn't say it's the best build out there, but it can still be useful and I find it quite fun to use. It also is wonderful for weapons that have very low sharpness. So for this build you need the Nergigante Helm Gamma, the Diablos Nero Mel Beta, Nergigante Vambraces Gamma, Diablos Nero Coil Beta, and the Nergigante Greaves Gamma. I'm also using a Unscathed Charm too, and for my weapon I'm using the Ragefire Magda Flogger. This has an affinity increase augmentation attached to it. As for your jaws, I've gone for standard DPS ones here. I've gone for Tenderizer jaws for that weakness exploit, Blast jaws to max out the blast rating of our weapon, Mighty jaws to max out maximum might, a Flawless jaw to max out peak performance, and finally a Slider jaw to provide us that affinity sliding. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 1362 attack, which will actually be higher when you're on a hunt thanks to peak performance. You'll have green sharpness, 25% affinity, which is actually 75 so long as you're going for monster weak points, and have maximum stamina, with a 510 blast rating. You'll also have a decent defense, especially against fire, but you're fairly weak to Thunder, Ice and Dragon. As for the skills, you'll have attack boost level 4, blast attack level 3, increasing the blast rating of our weapon as well as the build up, weakness exploit level 3, peak performance level 3, maximum might level 3, resentment level 2. Resentment is a byproduct of the gear we're wearing, but can still be useful. It's almost the mirror opposite of peak performance in a way. Once you have a portion of red health on your health bar, it will increase your attack. So, potentially when peak performance deactivates, thanks to you getting hit, resentment will activate instead. You'll also have Part Breaker level 1, again a byproduct of the gear but can come in useful as it allows us to potentially break monster parts more easily. Agitator level 1, again a byproduct of the gear, Stamina Surge level 1, and again a byproduct of the gear, and Affinity Sliding level 1. Affinity Sliding increases our affinity rating by a whopping 30% when we perform a slide move. And with the hammer having one of the best sliding moves in the game, it's a useful skill. You'll also have the following set bonuses: Nergigante's Hunger, Hasten Recovery, allowing us to recover our health when we're attacking a monster, as well as the Diablos Mastery Bludgeoner. Bludgeoner basically raises your attack as your weapon loses sharpness, and also boosts your weapon's odds of stunning a monster. And with the hammer being naturally a weapon that can stun easily, this helps even more. Now, the main reason I really use the blunt build on the hammer is because it doesn't really have too much of an issue regarding bouncing off a monster's hide, especially when compared to its sharper brethren. So it seems to be able to make use of weapons that have that green or even yellow sharpness. The Ragefire Magdaflogger cannot really get above blue sharpness, and even then it will only be a sliver of blue sharpness. And whilst going for the white sharpness route is normally more optimal when it comes to DPS, in the case of this weapon, the Bludgeoner set bonus really helps. Even when you go down from green sharpness to yellow sharpness, your attack will be increased. Also, thanks to the weapon having an incredibly high blast rating, I find this build fun to use. But like I said, I acknowledge this is a little bit of a quirky build, and it might not be the most optimal out there, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Anyway, let's move on to our fourth and final build, which is the survivability build. Again, this is a personal favourite of mine, utilising survivability above all else, while at the same time still having a decent damage output. So for this build, you'll need the Nergigante Helm Beta, the Valhazak Mail Gamma, the Valhazak Braces Beta, the Valhazak Coil Gamma, and the Nergigante Greaves Gamma. I'm also using an Exploited Charm 2, and for my weapon, I'm using the Empress Mace Ruin. This has a health regen augmentation attached to it. As for your jaws, there's a mixed bag here. Firstly, I've gone for Vitality Jaws to max out our health, Recovery Jaws to max out the Recovery Speed skill, Medicine Jaws to max out the Recovery Up skill, an Attack Jaw to get attack boost to level 4, a Tenderizer Jaw to max out Weakness Exploit, Flawless Jaw to max out Peak Performance, a Mighty Jaw for some maximum might, a Slider Jaw for that affinity sliding, a Handicraft Jaw for some extra sharpness, and finally a Sharp Jaw to provide us with that protective polish. So, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 150 health, which is actually 200 health when you're on a hunt and taking all your various consumables, 100 stamina, 1128 attack, which is actually higher when you're on a hunt thanks to peak performance, with white sharpness. You have 35% affinity, which is actually 85 so long as you go for monster weak points and have maximum stamina, with 150 blast rating. We also have a okay defense, especially against water, but you're fairly weak to fire and dragon. As for the skills, you have attack boost level 4, health boost level 3, recovery up level 3. This increases how much health we recover whenever we perform a healing action, whether it be from the Valhazak set bonus, the health regen augmentation, the hasten recovery skill, or drinking potions. You'll also have recovery speed level 3, increasing the rate at which we regenerate our health naturally, weakness exploit level 3, peak performance level 3, maximum might level 3, dragon attack level 1, a byproduct of the gear, not useful on this build whatsoever, handicraft level 1, affinity sliding level 1, protective polish level 1, and hasten recovery level 1. Hasten recovery is normally the Nergigante set bonus, but it is actually found on the Empress Mace Ruin, so it allows us to recover health when we attack a monster. This, combined with the health regen augmentation, makes it very useful. You'll also have the Valhazak Vitality Super Recovery set bonus, allowing us to recover our health naturally past the red portion of our health bar. Normally when you take damage and you have a portion of red health on your health bar, this recovers on its own over time. Recovery speed actually increases the rate at which it does, but super recovery allows you to go past that red portion of health, pretty much allowing you to regenerate your entire health bar without having to take a potion. Recovery speed and recovery up also benefits this set bonus. So as you can see, we have 5 aspects of health regen on this build, which all adds to our survivability. Super recovery, recovery up, recovery speed, hasten recovery, and the health regen augmentation means that we rarely have to stop to take a potion. We can just keep on in the fight without having to back off. This build is also no joke in the DPS department. Whilst it's not the strongest build out there when it comes to dealing out damage, it can still hold its own. Having the attack boost, weakness exploit, maximum might, and its peak performance gives it plenty of DPS potential. Peak performance also should be active quite a lot of the time, thanks to the fact that we can recover our health at such an incredible rate, allowing us to take on the toughest monsters that Monster Hunter World has to offer. So there we have it. Those are even more builds that I use for the hammer. Of course, Monster Hunter World is always being updated with new monsters and gear, which can potentially cause these builds to change and become even stronger, especially with Iceborne on the horizon. so if any major updates happen to any of these builds, I'll be sure to release an updated video. Remember also that almost any task in Monster Hunter World can be taken on with any weapon or gear set. You don't have to use what is shown in these videos. These are just the sets that I personally like to use. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or informative, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you even more builds that I use for the hammer. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.